we're there. Okay. And Bo just reminded me that we want to make sure we have the chat open. I don't know why I have to change this every single time, but it seems that we do have to do that. So hang on one second.
No problem. I'm going to grab one thing while you're doing that.
Yeah, do that. So I'll make this everyone, make this everyone, and make this everyone so that everyone can talk. That way it's back and forth and not just us to you. So there's, oh, hello from Kansas. Hey, Marietta, thanks so much for, yeah, there we go. Now that feels better. Now it feels like you're there, not just kind of there. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another ASEA Global Expansion Team Zoom. We have the incredible honor of talking with Tyler Norton, who just returned from Mexico. He's marrying off his kids right and left. And so he's down there celebrating and making sure that they feel honored in this very important process of marriage. So anyway, we're going to talk tonight about our brand promise, and our brand promise is we power potential, as you may have heard. And Tyler, I know that when you heard about that, you did a deep dive into figuring out what that trademark might be. And when you came across this we power potential, you heard angels sing. So this is definitely it. So we're going to talk about that tonight.
Cool.
So talk about why, I mean, I know that like Nike has Just Do It, and, you know, all these different companies have, you know, their different taglines and things. Tell us about the importance of a brand promise, and where does that position us in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the idea of what is a brand can oftentimes be diminished to something as simple as a logo, or to a series of colors, or even fonts, or different things that represent a visual voice. But there's a pretty comprehensive approach to saying, okay, what is it that we represent in the marketplace? And there's several things I mentioned at convention that a brand needs to kind of be able to do. One of them is it needs to have a noble purpose. It needs to be a kind of a singular point of differentiation, something that you can say more confidently than just anyone else can say. So the idea is to avoid a copy and paste moment where anyone could potentially say this. And so there's this element of differentiation. It has to be something you can actually deliver on. So you see lots of brand promises that are top spin. That's a Virtus way of saying it. Virtus used to always say to me, you know, avoid the top spin, meaning don't just say something you can't deliver on. So there has to be an element of authenticity and really genuinely being able to do it and mean it. And that promise is something that you want to signal to the entire ecosystem. So I want someone that comes to work at ASEA to say, when I worked at ASEA, you know, my potential was empowered. We want someone that uses our products to say, I felt like my potential was empowered. And certainly human potential, as we've talked a lot about over the years, is a big part of it too. So it's this idea of saying, what can I offer to anyone that engages with our ecosystem that comes away saying, you know what I felt when I was there? You know, I felt like I was reaching my potential. So the idea of, and I'm speaking obviously specifically to what we landed on, but oh my gosh, we peeled the onion, more than 40 or 50 meetings, just really trying to narrow it down. It's kind of an idea of literary compression, which I've talked about before, where it's like the less you can say with the more powerful, the better. And so it took us a while to get there, but you're right. I heard choirs, like it was not a high school choir either. It was like a real genuine, like angelic choir. I was like, that's it. That's what I want us to stand for. And I feel like that's what we've stood for from the beginning.
Absolutely. You know, I've heard you talk over the years, and I've heard you talk about a water bottle, right? And its capacity is 12 ounces, right? And some of us, if you compare that to our life, some of us live our life at 3 ounces. We have the potential to be 12 ounce, to live a 12 ounce life, but maybe we don't have the vehicle or the confidence or whatever. So we kind of live that 3 ounce life. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on, I think the most fundamental element to our humanity is that we can increase. that we can do more and be more and become more. I will submit to you, Cindy, and you know this better than anyone. You've been here from the beginning. Think of how many opportunities my dad could have easily taken to just pivot. And most people point to the idea that there was an offer from a pharmaceutical company to go a different direction. And there's truth, that's 100% true. But to me, it was much more significant than that. There were other businesses he could have done besides pharmaceutical with these products and technologies. So my father's commitment, one of the big things we teach in the ethos is this idea of flow, and flow being this optimal life experience. And if you know anything about flow, then can remember it's where the new challenges can meet new skills, which inherently points to this idea of a frontier of potential, right? And I love that our compensation structure, our recognition programs are all built around this idea of, okay, what's the next summit? What's the next thing I want to do? And I think my father is a great example of someone at age 70 who said, you know what, I'm not done yet. And I think it's interesting. There's a lot of us that think about hanging up the cleats and slowing the pace down, and he was doing the exact opposite. And I think that's a great model for the idea of powering potential. Like, don't stop, keep going. So yeah, I don't even know if that answered your question, but that's what came to mind.
Absolutely. Well, the other, kind of focus that we have is this believe, belong, become. And so, yeah, you can believe in the company and the product and the business model and all that. And you hopefully you feel like you belong to something bigger than yourself.
Yep.
But then you hit the road, and man, people aren't just knocking at your door going, hey, I want to join. I want to join. So you have to go through this, morphosis of becoming the best person you can possibly be, and be the best possible person for the person in front of you, listening really carefully to not what's in it for you, but what is in it for them, and how could this vehicle possibly serve them? And maybe when you're talking to somebody, you don't even talk about ASEA. You're just being a nice human, and you're part of this incredible, rich humanity being a force for good in the world. And ASEA is not going to serve them right now. So you're just talking to them like a person, right? But then you might discover something, that a problem that they have in their life where ASEA might help them with a solution. And so let's talk a little bit about that.
I love the way you just positioned that. I think the greatest secret to success in this space is to dislocate yourself from a narrative and a set of expectations that you have. And don't try to turn humanity into linear algebra. If I do X, then I'm going to get Y. If I do this 2 times X, then I'm going to get 2 times Y. There's a joy in letting go of the narratives. And I actually think there's an invisible hand. There's a concept in the economy. I'm an economist by background and education. And there's this notion of the invisible hand. That is to say that when there's something bigger at play that's playing out. And so the first thing I would tell you is extreme curiosity and genuinely authentic interest in other people always precedes meaningful business conversations. But it can't flip. So a meaningful business conversation can't be the tip of the spear and can't be the basis for the interaction. It has to be something that it comes from a place of extreme curiosity and authentic interest in someone else. And that requires the skill of listening. That requires the skill of being present instead of worrying about being able to present. You have to be present. It requires a sincerity and an interest in someone else. And so what happens often is we start to dehumanize ourselves because a compensation plan or a trip or a rank advancement starts to become this mathematical equation. Like, if I do this many cases or sell this much or hit this volume level and the way my organization is structured, then I'm going to make it. I genuinely believe that you miss the joy of the journey and you diminish the humanity of it. So, of course, the reason we do that, Cindy, and I've shared this with you many times, I genuinely believe that we're maybe overly committed to the idea of talking to a few people and hoping for significant outcomes. So we're not talking to enough people. And the nice thing about this is when you dislocate yourself from the outcome or from trying to change someone's eye color or manipulate their interpretation of something, and you're genuinely invested in the conversation or who they are, it frees you up to be more active because you're not trying to get to some linear outcome, where it's like, if I can get you to do something. That's why this idea of next level marketing that I've been trying to preach for a number of years now is, let's stop trying to get others to do something and let's genuinely do something for others and then watch what happens. And so I think, one thing I've noticed, and this is true of the employees I work with, I do a lot of volunteer work in my community. Everyone I meet is going through something. People are going through challenges, economic, family, personal, business, health challenges. And I think the idea of being genuinely curious and interested in someone else to the point where you can start to get a sense or feel for what they're up against and what they're dealing with. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I met with a gentleman in a church capacity who I know reasonably well. He's a neighbor of mine. He's in his early 70s. And I started just asking him questions about this time in his life. And it's funny, I would see him at church and I would notice that even in the wintertime, he was wearing sandals. And I didn't really know, I just thought, oh, he has a preference to wearing sandals. And but it was snowing yesterday and he was wearing sandals. and so I noticed this and we started talking and he said, well, you probably noticed this. And I said, actually, I have. And then he went on to talk about this really difficult challenge he has with his feet. And so just that discussion about his reality then led me to a discussion about, well, I have something I think might be able to help you. And so after this call, I'm stopping by his house with ASEA to talk to him about ASEA. And he was open to that because it was far more natural. Whereas if I led with that and then happened to cross my fingers, he had an issue with his feet, it doesn't work that way. So I just think there's a joy in this when we dislocate from trying to do it mathematically. Humanity is not math.
Yeah.
And people are going through things. People are going through challenges. And I think to the degree we show genuine interest in wanting to hear about that and show empathy and concern, I think it opens up plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. We call it's a numbers game. This business is just a numbers game. It's a numbers game. Well, as soon as you start treating people like numbers, you're in big trouble because this is a humanity game, right?
And frankly, I would change the word game. Like even treating it like the game sometimes can be missed. So I agree with you. It's like, is it a numbers game or is it a people game? And then you say, but what if it's not a game at all? What if like the person that's dealing with this health challenge is real? And they are real. And, so I think the idea here is when the business outcomes become your primary focus, and that's all you're zoomed in on, I will submit to you, you're less yourself, you're less genuine, and you're less influential. When the people are genuinely, you feel for them, and someone just wrote, compassion for others in the chat thing, which I appreciate from, who's that, Nora, compassion is a compound word. Com is together and with. Passion, the derivative of passion is suffering. That's why the last week of Christ's life is referred to as the Passion of Christ, because it's the suffering. So the idea that I'm going to have compassion for you says that I'm going to suffer with you. And that might just be me engaging in the discussion about your situation. Now, I'm not saying that happens easily. That's why extreme curiosity is so important. Like if I genuinely want to talk to somebody, and then I'm going to focus on things about them. And I'm not just going to be shoehorning the conversation into the shoe, right? I'm not just pushing it there. I'm just genuinely having a conversation with them. There comes these really natural touch points where they might ask what I do or, what makes me who I am or how I am. So, and I think it's an important thing that we stop trying to turn this beautiful human thing into a spreadsheet. It's not a spreadsheet any more than your life is or my life is, right?
Yeah. You go out there and you get a lot of rejection. And so, people say, well, you got to have thick skin to do this, man. You got to have broad shoulders, you got to have a strong backbone, but then you have to stay really compassionate. So, man, wow. Talk about, powering your potential. I mean, you have to really pull some valves and open some levers that maybe have never been worked before.
Yeah. And that, frankly, that adversity is an advantage. I mean, we're not going to get any kind of potential that we hope to reach. We're never going to reach that potential without resistance. Right. So the idea is, none of us are going to reach the potential without the challenge. The key is not to be seduced into the path of least resistance and try to diminish this to a business that's not about people. I think that's where the high ground is saying, yeah, I've had zero success this week. Okay, step back for a minute and check in with these really fundamental concepts. Are you enjoying the process? If the answer is a meaningful no, then stop for a minute. Like, what about this could you design differently? And I will tell you, the joy in enjoyment, right? The word joy in enjoyment is always other-centric. And if there's this weird kind of head fake you're doing to yourself by trying to act interested in others when all you're really obsessing about is your own business success, your volume, and how it plays out inside your business, I think that's paper thin. But step back and enjoy the people, right? If you're not having a lot of success with people that are new discussions or relationships, sometimes the best thing you can do is respect that and pull back from it and regroup. Reconnect with the people who do believe, whose life you have impacted. I've shared a couple of times. I keep this letter on my desk. This is from a single woman in Malaysia who shared this most beautiful story with me. Her name is Kat, or no, excuse me. Her name is, oh, I'm going to say her name wrong. She might be on the call. I think it's Khalil or Kat, but it's this beautiful story of her saying, I've lived almost 5 decades. I don't have any children, not by choice. I have a decent job, but in this part of the world, everyone does that. And then they come home, and I found myself time and time again saying, is this it? Somebody shared ASEA with her through Facebook, and she begins to share how it's changing her brother's life, who's had real serious challenge. And she just walks through this really beautiful, genuine, sincere human story of starting to feel like her potential to make a difference in the world is being found. In this, I think she's a director 700, but so much more is happening around this brand promise of her potential. And so I keep this, I keep it on my desk to remind myself that why would we trade time every day, and we're trading it with what in mind? Everybody needs the income. So please don't think I'm diminishing that, right? I get criticized, this, Cindy, as being overly this way. And I don't mean to say that, right? I'm a capitalist, but I genuinely believe there's a right way to do this that's more enjoyable, and that actually has a higher probability of success in powering potential. And that is people first. And that requires more of me. I have to invest in others. I have to be genuinely interested in others. It requires me to look in the mirror, right? And be careful a little bit with how I'm approaching my life, but it's way more rewarding.
Yeah. Somebody told me, that people get anxious about their mortgage and they got to pay for, the baseball camp and groceries that were $40 last week or $80 this week. And, they're getting upset about the financial, cash flow in their family, and ASEA is supposed to be an additional income stream. And I had somebody tell me one time, if you're that anxious about the money, you better get a job, because this is about helping people first, and then you get paid. You don't get paid and then you help people. You help people, then you get paid. And if it can't be about the money, you have to help the people, and it doesn't happen overnight. This is, an evolutionary process. I've told a story several times about me going down to Australia, and this wonderful woman come up to me and she goes, "Are you Cindy Buck?" And I thought I was in trouble. I thought I did something wrong. I'm like, oh man, I'm such an idiot. I don't know which way to park. I don't know which way to look when I cross the street. Everything's backwards down here. Anyway, I said, "What did I do?" And she said, no, You told somebody who told somebody who told somebody who told somebody who told somebody, and this word of mouth traveled from the Northern Hemisphere down to the Southern Hemisphere into my house. And I was introduced to this wellness concept, which made sense to me. So I invested in the wellness concept. And because I did that, my son now lives a much better quality of life. So I want to thank you. And I got goosebumps all over. I'm like, you want to thank me? Oh my gosh, I am so far removed from you, but isn't it cool that network marketing works that way? Because every single person that forwarded that word of mouth message was a critical part of the chain for that information to get from the Northern Hemisphere down to the Southern Hemisphere into this wonderful lady's home. And that's what we're a part of, but that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time, right?
It does. And I love listening to you talk, Cindy. I love when you tell stories like that because it's so beautiful and so sincere and so humbling. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, you've heard me say before, we can count the number of seeds in an apple, but we can't count the number of apples in a seed. And because why? Because I don't know how long a given seed will continue to yield fruit or trees, and that will yield more fruit, and that will yield. So we're not talking about network marketing. We're talking one of the most common, beautiful, meaningful realities that we see around us in plant life, in animal life. We see it in families. We see it in real genealogies, which is what? The cascading influence is a natural begetting, right, of something else. And that's the whole connectivity of the world, right? So if you've been able to see the fruit, right, from a seed, well, the truth is, I'll bet you for every one that maybe reverberates back to you, there's untold quantities affecting and influencing people right now that you don't even know about. And you've got to kind of lean into that a little bit and breathe that a little bit when it gets hard, because you don't have an immediate feedback loop with likes on a social media platform that are saying, thank you for this and telling you we liked you, right? There is an investment here, and there is a law of the harvest here. And we've got to remind ourselves of that. I don't know, you know, you've heard the grass is greener on the other side. You've heard me say, no, the grass is greenest where you keep watering it. So you've got to keep watering it. Now, I want to say something to you that will help the belief structure in this. I was given this book. Can you, it's backwards.
Yep.
Probably.
Yep. No, it's good.
Have you seen it?
One disease. No.
Read that out loud for everybody.
One disease, redox imbalance.
This is it. This is okay. Now I just want to read a line from this to you. And the reason is because our brand promise speaks to both our product's ability to power potential, but also this opportunity, right? I mean, and so let's ask ourselves, do we have, you know, an opportunity here? Well, let me just read this section written by the way, by Michael Scherer. And here it is. Intuitively, most people know that stress causes disease. How many times have you heard that said? I got a cold because things were stressful at work. I'm feeling run down. Perhaps someone's had some sort of challenge because of stress, and they figured there was some connection. But maybe unless you're a medical researcher, most people have little idea of why stress causes disease. Now listen to this. Over the past decade, an avalanche of scientific papers have been published building a case for the idea that redox imbalance, typically an elevated oxidative stress or diminished antioxidant capacity caused by stress, is in fact causing disease. The emerging picture, listen, the emerging picture is far more complex than the earlier, simple, but wrong-headed notion that oxidants are bad and that antioxidants are good. Rather, the research is showing oxidants were essential to healthy signaling and proper functioning of all bodily systems. And then it goes on to list the healthy body along with redox balance, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the point. My dad was saying this when everyone was saying the exact opposite. And we've built a global business in 33 countries, not because of just the fact that we're planting seeds, but because it's truth. What we're sharing is true. And the impact and influence that our products and our commitment to redox biochemistry can and will have is nowhere near even close to getting off the ground. We're still early. But what's happening, and we always said this, is that the science and the overall community, academically and otherwise, would begin to catch up on this idea of redox balance. Now, why is this important for all those that are listening right now? Powering your potential begins, in my opinion, with a sustainably advantaged opportunity, something that has a competitive position that's sustainable. We have it, right? We have a sustainable competitive advantage here. And I really believe it's important that we remember that these things are coming out. Okay, this is a book sent to me with a copyright date of 2021.
Wow.
Okay, so you're going to see more and more of this emerge. You all are on a call right now with products in hand that have high impact and influence potential. Your ability to speak from a place of deep abiding conviction about that, while connecting to caring and compassionate interest and curiosity in other people, is a really important part of this. When it gets hard, right, keep moving. Because as I've just glanced at this book, right, I'm like, we've been saying this for 10 years and more of this is coming out, right? So I just want everyone to be really confident. Now, I need to tell you something else. Why do I feel like we can power potential? Well, we're focused on Redox, and I'm excited to tell you, like, we've got new products coming this year that are going to be powered by Redox that we're working on right now. We also are working on really interesting science things. And I'm telling you right now, we are finding some things out about the core technologies that you've all loved and enjoyed that it's too early for me to tell you, but I will tell you it's right in line with these things. And it's nothing but a punctuation mark on what we've been saying for 10 years. And those things are things where we have the medical professionals board coming in next week. We'll be sharing some things with them about it. But incidentally, powering potential around products and around Redox as a concept, but also this idea of the business opportunity. We're investing a lot in technology, which we've struggled with. I mean, a lot of people have been frustrated with us. I have no problem being real about it, but we're investing in certain key areas and getting really excited about where we think technology can play and platforms can play to facilitate your business growth while powering your potential. So the powering of potential is not, I mean, it's cellular, it's Redox related, it's business model related, it's competitive advantage related, right? I mean, there's a lot of dimensions to that brand promise. And I just very thankful for anyone engaged in it, but I want to encourage you, like, don't write the narrative, live the narrative. Because so many people are riding this line and curve of their life. And I recently met with someone who was struggling in a number of areas and said, well, this isn't the life I thought I was going to be living. And I was like, but live the one you're living. Like, go there right now and live it.
Yeah.
Because if we keep trying to write a narrative and then we're constantly measuring the spread between what the narrative is or was and where we are, you're leaving a lot of unique opportunity on the table. But now live the narrative, be in the narrative, be present in the narrative. And I submit to you, it will take you to places you've never dreamed.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I had two thoughts that pop in my head. One is that our body has always been the master healer. Our body has always had the potential to heal itself.
Yep.
That's why we call ASEA the missing link. It just needed to be communicated with. The cells just had to talk. I had to know what's going on, right? So we have our hands on such a powerful signaling technology, which is the foundational product line of this company. So that's one thing, is that's why what we have is so amazing, is that we're just tapping into the body's potential. The body had the potential all along. It just didn't have a way of tapping into that potential. And now it does, because it comes in a blue bottle and a little white and blue tube, right?
Yeah, it's
and
true.
The other thing is, I'm reading a book called Think Again. And when I just listened to it and I'm reading it, and it's about turning what you thought was true inside out. You're looking at your life a different way, looking at, different things, different ways, because, I don't know if you've ever heard the story about the little girl that asked her grandma, she said, Grandma, why do we cut off the ends of the ham? And they go, oh, I don't know, ask your great grandma. They go down, generations, right? And they finally get to the woman that started this tradition. And she said, oh, it's because we had a small stove, we had a small oven. right? So it no longer applied in 2023, right?
That's right.
So
That's
we
right.
gotta rethink how we're doing things. So we're at the bottom of the half hour. What do you want to say to wrap this up? We're at an incredibly exciting, I believe, pivotal point for us. I really believe that 2023 is going to be an inflection point for this business. And, Wayne Gretzky says, don't skate to the puck, skate to where the puck is going. Well, we are already there, right?
Yep. Yeah. I will tell you that the thought that keeps coming to me of late is this thing I've taught in the past around the concept of decisions. And the idea that the word decide, which is also a compound word, has as a suffix to that word CIDE or side, which actually means to kill. So if I said to you a pesticide or even a homicide, right? Those are all things. When I say something is cidal, it can kill something. So interesting that the word decide has as its suffix, which is essentially the majority of the word, the DE at the front means just equal to. So something needs to be killed in order to make a decision. If I go left, I've killed right. So I'm certainly talking about the idea first off is, where are you in the decision-making process of how you want ASEA to power your potential? So the first thing I would promote to you is the idea that in the deciding, there is a sidal element. Something needs to go away. I can't keep going left and right. I've got to make some decisions. That could be a mindset that you need to kill. That could be a narrative about what you're not or what you can't be or what you've never proven to yourself you could be. Now, what's interesting at the same time, the word decision comes from the same word as incision, which means to cut. So you have these two really beautiful concepts, right? If I'm going to make this decision, I need to cut some things. And if I'm going to decide, right, I need to kill some things. Now, I'm not talking about anything that you would, I'm a big believer in life. I am talking about, we have these really negative mindsets. We have these really limiting structures. We even have complaints, frustrations, and in some cases, we're allowing the weather to have some influence over us. We have to declare our independence from the weather, which is always going to change. That could be the economy, that could be me, that could be the way we're trying to run this company. There's a lot of challenges, but if you pivot and say, I'm just going to kill those narratives and I'm going to make the cuts in my life, right? Now, it's interesting to note that in the early days, I'm talking like biblical Old Testament days, when you made a covenant, it always included cutting something. And the idea was called cutting a covenant. And covenants were promises, right? So if you and I went into a business promise, there might have actually been the shedding of some blood and the cutting of a covenant together to say, I'm all in. And there was a real deep meaning between this idea of cutting something. Now go back to incisions or decisions, meaning cut. So decisions are promises that you make. They're covenants that you're making with yourself. And those moments of deciding are also killing some things. I believe that it would be well for you to decide, to make a decision that you want to power your potential this year. What I can promise you is this: the products we have power potential. There are more of them coming. They power potential. There's really beautiful science that we're working on right now. I've never been more excited about. And it's awesome because it's proving things that we've been saying for 10 years. The academic community and the world around us is starting to say, we've had this wrong. You talk about your book, Think Again. There's another one I read called Being Wrong. And it talks about these notions we carry, and that we should probably step back and allow ourselves to realize that, well, guess what this is saying? Yeah, the wrong-headed notion that antioxidants are good and oxidants are bad. No, balance is good. And that's why we've won in the last 10 years. And oh, by the way, nobody else is on our playing field. There have been some that have tried, but they're not here. I don't tell you guys this, Cindy. There's a lot more patent protection I'm not going to tell you about. But when I say a lot more, it's not like 2 more. It's not 5 more. It's not 10 more. In the last 5 years, we've done a ton of work to widen the moat around the castle of what we have. So I think this is an incredible opportunity for you. I think if you're going to decide, that means you're going to kill some things. And if you're going to make the decision, that means you're going to make an incision or some cuts. and decide some things that you're no longer going to listen to, you're no longer going to give your credence to, or your own time and attention to, and move, like go into it. And let go of the narrative and enjoy the people, enjoy the journey. Don't live to a narrative, live to and into the narrative. Find your narrative now. Your story's being written today. Write the story today. And it almost always gets better when it's other-centric.
Yeah, so true. So true, Tyler. Thank you so much, man. We're so excited. We are at the end of January. We have 11 more months, and we are just going to kick it. We're just going to absolutely kick it. So we power potential, you power potential. We love you very much. With this product is just off the charts, and it's just the beginning of an avalanche that is going to flow, and nobody can stop it, even if they tried. It's a living movement, man. So
Cindy,
psyched to have you on.
If you were a stock, I would buy you and hold you. Like, I love you. I love Cindy. Cindy is Redox. So I just appreciate you. Thanks for inviting me tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tyler. Have an incredible evening. Give a big hug to your family.
Love you guys. Thanks. See ya.